had my wife served for divorce since she sided with her key-stealing, entitled mother. Just because I found the thought of it humorous, I'll be referring to my wife as wifey a lot from now on. Also, I know I seem like I'm posting too fast, but remember this originally started around 10 days ago, and I've not wasted time in getting the divorce started. I also apologize for the length of this post as I could not keep it short. It really didn't take me long to find and hire a divorce lawyer, and she's mean. Yes, my lawyer is a woman, and she seems pretty good at her job. She asked me a couple of times if I was really sure I wanted to do this, but once I explained my full story to her and showed some evidence, she agreed with me when I said I wanted to start ASAP. So she got the ball rolling. Oh, this divorce is going to cost me, but I don't care. I'll rebuild my savings later as a free man. I didn't even want to rent the house I'm currently living in anyway. Wifey pushed for that. I'd have been happy staying in our old apartment we used to share until we could have actually afforded to buy a house together instead. But that's obviously never happening. I'll be paying a lot less for an apartment once we separate. Before coming home, wifey spent some time at a cheap motel when she bailed her mother out of jail, and she even threatened to call police on me when I went to see her there. I changed the locks with my landlord's permission while wifey was still away and sent her a text saying I'd done so, but I guess she'd not bothered to look since she never responded. So upon returning home, she ended up pounding on the door and screaming at me to let her in. I just watched her through the doorbell cam and let her keep it up for a while before she finally got on her phone to call me. I was already walking home from having had dinner with my best friend when she called, and I pointed out the text she'd not bothered to read. When I got home to let her in, she was puffy-cheeked, teary-eyed, and red with a bit of catbutt face. I had a new key ready for her and told her if she gave a copy to her mother again, I'd be notifying our landlord, as they were already very angry she'd given her mother a key to begin with. Not sure what the landlord could have done, but it was enough to make wifey comply for the moment. Plus, I'm not going to be living here much longer anyway. My mill still believes she did absolutely nothing wrong and is playing victim to wifey every chance she gets. She's not allowed over anymore for obvious reasons, and I've been repeatedly called a monster by her and wifey. I've never been more glad that Mill has no friends, because then she'd be telling them all her convoluted version of the story to paint me as a villain. I just know it. She was told how much my key collection is roughly worth and what kind of felony charges she could be facing, though my collection was returned fully intact, so she may get the charges lessened. I'd like to hope she gets a decent punishment at least, but I'm not really counting on the system to throw the book at a manipulator like her. As I said in my previous post, wifey also paid her mother's bail and what she owed to the pawn shop with money out of our joint bank account, and then smugly told me that she wouldn't be putting the money back. Basically, that was a terrible power move and her only way to try and put all the cost on me. I've since removed everything I had in that account and stopped all future payments to it so she can't spend my money too. And I've changed my passwords to pretty much everything. Wifey flipped the hell out on me for it once she finally checked the account a couple days ago, because that meant that what she paid for Mill's bail and reimbursing the pawn shop was all in her money only, and now there was no more access to my funds to supplement her own with. I just ignored her tantrum and went into the home office to watch anime on my computer. She banged on the door for a while demanding I talk to her. I just stayed quiet and put on headphones. Wifey has repeatedly demanded I drop all charges against her mother and even said that if I really loved her, I would not only stop all this, I'd cover the cost too. When I kept refusing, she moved into the spare bedroom. She tried to kick me out of the master bedroom first, but I made it clear I'm not giving up the master bedroom when she's the one at fault. She tried to start taking my stuff out, but I just blocked her while pointing my finger at her face and said no, like I was talking to a dog. She ended up crying and saying I was demeaning her, but I didn't care. Then, for some more deception on her part, she admitted to me out of pure spite that until this mess had started, she'd been planning on letting her mother come live with us full-time soon because of the state of her hoarder house. She boasted that she was just gonna move her in while I was at work. I told her we were supposed to be equal partners before this all happened, and I was sick of her unilateral decision-making. And as long as I'm paying 50% of the lease, her mother will not be living here. And if she tried, I'd throw all her mother's stuff out immediately. Wifey looked like she wanted to explode and stormed off to have a drink and a loud phone call with her mother in the kitchen. I just started removing her stuff from the master bedroom and left it in the other room for her. I've put a new lock on the door to the master bedroom too. I had wifey served at her job, which she said really embarrassed her in front of her colleagues. And she flipped out on me again once she got home. Apparently, she didn't take my threats of divorce seriously until those papers were actually in her hands. She said I couldn't do this, but I told her I was done. She made it more than clear where she stands. I told her I learned a rather interesting phrase online. When people show you who they really are, believe them. And she's clearly shown me who she really is. And it's not the woman I fell in love with. That woman disappeared and got replaced with an entitled mommy's girl who refuses to act her age right after we got married, which makes it pretty obvious she did that intentionally. At this point, I don't think she ever loved me, just my wallet. I can't stay married to a woman who conned me into marrying her. Then she started screaming at me that she wasn't a gold digger. So I asked her if she'd have been inclined to stay married to me if I'd done the all same things to her. She tried to deny it at first, then looked around like she was trying to find a better answer. Then she just gaslit to deflect as usual. But I had none of it. I told her right then and there that I'm not renewing the lease on the house with her because I don't want to live with a petulant woman child I can't trust. And if she wants to keep the house, she can go ahead and start a new lease to move her mother in once I'm gone. Finally, that's when the real waterworks started. She said I was destroying our family. And I said, "What family?" And pointed out how we don't have kids and her mother is more important to her than me. We have no family. Then I just walked away. She loudly cried in the living room for hours, but I ignored her. Now she's giving me the hardcore silent treatment and won't look me in the eyes. I'm actually enjoying it, which just seems to make her angrier. As an added bonus, I warned my current landlord about wifey wanting to move her mother in. I gave him all the details I had about Mill, the state of her hoarder house, and how much of a deceptive mommy's girl wifey is, and warned him that if he let my Mill live in any property he owns, she would turn it into an utter disaster. He thanked me for telling him, and is now not going to let wifey renew the lease on her own if she tries. He'll be advertising the property soon. Wifey has no idea yet, and likely would have only just barely been able to afford the house with her mother's help anyway. One more thing. Yesterday, someone warned me to take my name off the joint bank account entirely so I would not be on the hook for any overdraft. I took that to heart and went to the bank to get it done. Only took a few minutes to do it, and the bank is 10 minutes away by car. All good now. I've been working from home lately, so I had the time. All statements from the account were already printed and given to my lawyer too, so I can wash my hands of it. I don't know if it's the same rules everywhere, but the bank had no problem removing my name from the account as a cosigner when I pushed for it. There were no debts on the account, and had plenty more than the minimum balance. The bank likely did tell wifey, but whether or not she knows I did it, it does not matter as she's currently not talking to me.
I used to steal money from rude customers at my job, and I never got caught. I'm long gone from this job, so I can finally get this off of my chest. I used to work at a very large corporate convenience store or gas station. I was working there around the age of 16 to 17. I hated working there so badly. I loved to work, but that job was so stressful, it got tiring. The only thing that was worth it was the fact that I was getting paid weekly instead of bi-weekly. The checks were what was keeping me around. The managers were creeps, and definitely held favoritism with their own, mostly when it came to race and family as well. I got hired because they needed serious help. I was looking for a job in the area by any means and decided to give it a shot. The job had a detailed description as to what I'd specifically be doing, and after months of doing that, maybe about 3, they eventually had me running the whole store, which, believe it or not, can get pretty hectic when it's just one person there, or another person slacking off. It wasn't a part of the job description deal, but I had decided to put up with it anyway. The main problem was that the customers were horrible. Everyone had attitudes, would take their anger out on me, or even tried to fight me behind the counter. I'm not the type of person to back down, so unfortunately I would entertain the negative energy and even try to fight back. I was young, immature, and wasn't the type to ignore or allow disrespect, Eventually, due time, it did get to the point where I had decided the money wasn't enough to stay, but instead of leaving, so I had came up with this plan. Being that I had access to the whole store, I was mainly in charge of being on the register, so I had access to checking out the customers who wanted to purchase items. What I did was only possible with cash, so unfortunately if a rude customer was paying card. Now if a rude customer was paying cash, I would give them their change back, just short. The way our register was organized, it had it so that there was an extra slot that was kept empty. I would give the customer back their change $1 or even to short and put that in the empty slot. Then at the end of the shift, when it was time for me to count the money for store totals, I would keep the money I took from the customers and make sure everything added up and that there wasn't too little or too much so that counts would match up. It might not seem like much, but $1 to $2 can add up due time. I would work 10-hour shifts and get so many rude customers. By the end of my shift, I had as much money as an average waitress could make through tips, at least $50 a day. I worked almost every day of the week too, including weekends, so you can do the math. I was making extra money on top of the weekly checks I was already getting. But unfortunately, it was out of an inconvenience of a rude customer and something completely illegal. Don't be rude to retail workers, and definitely count to make sure you have all your change. For more stories, subscribe to our channel and share your opinion in the comments.